Very, very good morning to all of you, my friends. Welcome back. I hope you guys are doing good. Uh, so, in the last few sessions, we discussed overheads and activity-based costing. So now let's start with a new chapter. We are already done with overheads and activity-based costing. I hope you guys have solved all the questions of study material and past practice manual. So we'll be starting today with a new chapter, the easiest chapter of the syllabus, that is cost sheet. Very good morning, Ishan. I'll be taking your queries in the query session. Don't worry, Ishan. I'll request ICAI to allocate one query session. So be ready with all your queries. I assure you I'll try to conduct a query session. Don't worry, Ishan. Let's start with cost sheet. Now this chapter is the easiest chapter of syllabus. And further, this chapter is linked with two more chapters, that is unit and batch costing, and a part of method of accounting, that is reconciliation of cost and financial accounts. So for the thorough understanding of these two chapters, that is unit and batch costing and reconciliation of cost and financial accounting, you have to learn cost sheet. Very good morning, everyone. Yes, Darshan, it is a part of overheads. Good morning, Suraj. Good morning, everyone. So this chapter is linked with two more chapters, that is unit and batch costing and reconciliation of cost and financial accounts. So for the thorough understanding of these two chapters, you have to learn cost sheet. So let's start, guys, with cost sheet. Now, what is cost sheet? Cost sheet is a statement. ये क्या है? एक statement है, wherein we systematically record all the expenditures that are incurred in relation to manufacture of a product. So cost sheet एक तरह का statement है जिसमें हम लोग सारे खर्चे जो प्रोडक्ट बनाने के लिए करते हैं वो उनको सिस्टमैटिक वे में रिकॉर्ड करते हैं. So what is cost sheet? Cost sheet is a statement wherein we systematically record all the cost that are incurred Cost sheet is a statement where we systematically record all the costs that are incurred in relation to manufacture So what is cost sheet? Cost sheet is a statement wherein we systematically record all the costs or expenditures that are incurred in relation to manufacturing a product. Now, when talking about the cost part, the cost covers direct cost and indirect cost. What is direct cost and indirect cost? I have already discussed this part. No, Sudhanshu Shekhar, cost sheet is different. and costing P&L is different. Cost sheet is like, this is a statement which is prepared to calculate the total cost. That is the total cost of a product. हम लोग selling price fix up करते हैं, उससे पहले हम लोग क्या calculate करते हैं? Cost. So to calculate the cost, we do prepare a statement known as cost sheet, wherein randomly हम लोग total नहीं लगाते हैं. We do arrange all the costs in a systematic way in cost sheet. So there is a format of cost sheet. You have to memorize the format. Therein you have to place all the costs that are incurred in relation to manufacture of product to calculate the total cost. So when talking about cost cover direct and indirect cost. This part I have already discussed in overhead, but for the students who have not attended this chapter overhead, I am discussing this part again. So when talking about direct cost, the cost that is directly attributable in manufacturing a product is direct cost. What is direct cost? This cost sheet is an estimated data. So when talking about direct cost, the cost that is direct cost, the cost that is directly attributable in manufacturing a product. What is direct cost? The cost that is directly attributable in manufacturing a product is direct cost. And when talking about indirect cost, the costs that play a supporting role in manufacturing a product. So what is direct cost? The cost that is directly attributable. No worries, Himanshu. This is an estimated data. As I mentioned earlier, also this costing is all what about estimated data, not actual data. So a small language mistake, anyways. So when talking about direct cost, the cost that is directly attributable in manufacturing a product is direct cost. And when talking about indirect cost, the cost that play a supporting role in manufacturing a product is indirect cost. Now, as discussed earlier also, this direct cost covers direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. Further, this indirect cost also covers indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. So we have started with for the students who have joined a bit late. So we are starting with cost sheet. Cost sheet is a statement where we record systematically all the expenditures that will be incurred in manufacturing a product. Further, when talking about the cost part, the cost covers direct and indirect cost. When talking about direct cost, the cost that is directly attributable in manufacturing a product is direct cost. And when talking about indirect cost, the cost that play a supporting role in manufacturing a product is indirect cost. Now, when talking about direct cost, is covered direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. And further, indirect cost covers no, Varsha, the statement is incorrect. So indirect cost cover indirect material, indirect labor and indirect expenses. Now let me explain the difference between direct and indirect material. So let's say I'm the manufacturer of wooden furniture. Now the wooden furniture is made up of wood. So the wood is my direct material. But let's say to paste the wood, we are using some kind of glue or tape. So this glue or tape is what we call as indirect material. Another example, let's say I'm the manufacturer of shirts and these shirts are made up of fabric. These shirts are made up of fabric. So fabric is what my direct material. Now these shirts are stitched in machines and for the smooth functioning of machine, we are using some sort of lubricating oil grease. So this is what we call as indirect material. Another example, let's say I'm into cakes and I'm into manufacturing cakes wherein these cakes are made up of let's say cocoa powder, wheat, flour, yeast, eggs, etc. So these are the main ingredients in cake. So this is what we call as direct material. Now to maintain the hygiene standards, my chef uses hand gloves, caps, aprons. So these hand gloves, caps, aprons are nowhere present in the final product, but to maintain the hygiene standard, we use these products. So we use these materials. So that is indirect material. Yes, Darshan, separate cost sheet is to be prepared for every product, Darshan. Costing P&L is not an estimated record. So direct material, indirect material, this much discussion is sufficient. When talking about direct and indirect labor, let's say I am having a manufacturing company wherein I do manufacture garments, and to stitch the garments, I have kept labor. So whatever the wages paid to them is what my direct labor. But let's say to supervise the work done by them, I have kept a supervisor. So this supervisor is nowhere involved in manufacturing the garments or shirts, whatever it is. But yes, we do need a supervisor to supervise the work done by my ultimate workforce. So the salary paid to the supervisor is my indirect labor. Further, let's say I have kept a gatekeeper. Again, this gatekeeper or security guard is nowhere directly involved in manufacturing a product, but yes, I need to pay him. That is what we call as indirect labor. Equipments are the capital cost. I'll be discussing this part, Aisha, don't worry. When talking about direct expenses, again, the expenses that are directly attributable in manufacturing a product, let's say amortization of dies and molds or technical fees, know-how fees, power, coal and fuel will form part of direct expenses. And when talking about indirect expenses, it's a long list wherein we can cover rent, insurance, depreciation, etc., etc. So this part I have already discussed in detail in overhead. If you guys have any doubts in direct and indirect expenses, you guys can please post your queries. It will form part of direct labor cost. Any sort of fringe benefits or any sort of perquisites, if we are paying to employees, then it will form part of labor cost. If it is for the factory workers, then yes, it will form part of labor cost. So when talking about direct labor, whatever the benefits that are given to the direct labor, whether monetary or non-monetary, will form part of direct labor cost. When talking about the weightage of the chapter, the weightage is approx 8 to 10 marks. Now, the total of direct material, direct labor and direct expenses will be called as, we call it as prime cost. When talking about indirect cost, as I discussed earlier also, this indirect cost are overheads. And this indirect cost is further incurred at 3 stages. That is at factory level, office and administration level, and selling and distribution level. At all the 3 levels, this indirect cost is incurred. That is, there can be an indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses at office level also, selling and distribution level also. And factory, it will form part of, I mean, it happens in, I mean, this costs are incurred at factory level also. Varsha Shetty sir, depreciation is indirect cost. Yes, Varsha, depreciation will form part of either factory or office or selling and distribution overhead. It forms part of indirect expenses. I request you guys to please copy this part. Thereafter, we'll start with the remaining part. Yes, Diksha Agrawal, the cost sheet is prepared by manufacturing concerns only. Further, Varsha, this cost sheet is an estimated data, not an actual data. But yes, the costing P&L what we do prepare is an actual data, not the estimated data. So costing is P&L is prepared on actual figures and the cost sheet is prepared on estimated figures. Cost sheet is prepared by manufacturing concern only, not the trading concern or service sectors. Anyone else having any queries? किसी को अगर थोड़ा बहुत भी doubt है, you guys can please post your queries. Aisha Safa, we will depreciate the value of equipments and the depreciation will form part of either factory overheads or office overheads or selling and distribution overhead. No assets are recorded in cost sheet. We can calculate the cost per unit also, and we have to calculate the cost per unit also and the total cost, Himanshu, depending upon what the question is asking. Shubham, this cost sheet is prepared well. See, to launch a product, we have to check the market. That is, what all the competitors are offering. I mean, at what price the product is available in the market. So if we have the selling price, we try to figure out that how much cost will be incurred. So before starting the manufacturing process or before launching a product, we have to calculate the estimated cost so that we can calculate the estimated selling price, and accordingly we can check the market feasibility. So that's why this cost sheet is prepared well in advance before the start of manufacturing process. These all are the estimated expenditures, not the actual expenditure. This will form part of prime cost, that is direct material plus direct labor plus direct expenses. The total of these three will be the prime cost. It is an indirect cost. Depreciation will be an indirect cost. Direct cost covers direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. When talking about direct expenses, it covers cost of utilities such as power and fuel, royalty or any sort of technical fees, know-how fees if we are paying, further amortization of cost of dyes or mold, all these will form part of direct expenses. As far as indirect expenses is concerned, there is a long list. I request you guys to please copy. Yes, Anupam, this part will be covered in method of accounting, that is with integrated and non-integrated accounts. Direct, Ms. Noor Jamila, and very good morning, dear. Any doubts, Diksha, Varsha, Shubham, Anupam, Aisha, Himanshu, Varsha, Bhumika, Ms. Shukla, Ms. Singh, Rajiv Kumar, Sonali, anyone having any doubts? Waiting for your queries, guys. See, Mayur Gupta, I'll be discussing this part separately. So carriage inward and outward, I'll be discussing this part separately. Don't worry, Mayur. Rest, anyone having any doubts? So guys, let's proceed further. So as I told you guys, this cost sheet is a statement wherein we systematically record all the expenditures. So herein we'll be starting with the format of cost sheet, that is how to record systematically all the expenditures. So we'll be starting with the format of cost sheet. So let's start, guys. Sorry. So let's start with cost sheet. We'll start with the direct cost. Now, we'll start with the direct cost first. So if direct material is given straight away, you have to write direct material. But let's say opening and closing stock of raw material is given. Then we'll start like that. So opening stock of raw material opening stock of raw material, we will add purchase of raw material and we will subtract closing stock of raw material will get raw material consumed. So this also I'll be covering, Bhumika. Have some patience. Thank you so much, Sonali. Bhumika, don't worry. I'll be covering this part. Don't worry. So, if in question the direct material is given, write straight away direct material. But if direct material is not given and the information is given as regards opening and closing stock of raw material, then we'll start with opening stock of raw material, add purchase of raw material, less closing stock of raw material, will get the value raw material consumed. Now, when talking about purchase of raw material, when talking about the purchase of raw material, whatever the cost that is incurred till the factory gate will form part of purchase cost of raw material. This part I have already covered in valuation of material received. Still, I'll be discussing this part for your reference. So whatever the cost that is incurred till the factory gate will form part of cost of material. So the purchase price now, let's say I'm the manufacturer of plastic buckets, and I do import the raw material, that is PP granules, from a Japan-based company. Let's say from Sumitomo. There is a Japan-based company which is providing me PP granule. So whatever the purchase price I have paid, in this, we will add whatever the cost that is incurred from Japan till India will form part of cost of purchase. Let's say if I have paid custom duty, it will be added. If I have paid carriage or freight inward, this inward word is important, guys. If I have paid carriage inward or freight inward, it will be added. Thereafter, if the octroi we are paying, further if we are paying any sort of commission or brokerage on purchase, it will be added. If we are paying insurance, transit insurance, it will be added. If we are paying GST, it will be added. Now further, if we are getting any sort of duty credit of custom duty, then it will be deducted. Duty credit. It will be deducted. Further, if we are getting any sort of GST credit back, whatever the GST paid will be added. If we are getting any GST credit back, then it will be deducted. Let's say during transit, when talking about custom duty, this is the tax on import of goods, so it will be added. Now, let's say during transit or on receipt of on receipt of goods, I found that कुछ % raw material damage हो गया और उसको मैंने scrap कर दिया, and I have realized certain amount on sale of that scrap. So minus if any amount is realized on sale of scrap of raw material, it will be deducted. So this final value will be the purchase price and it will be shown in cost sheet. Alternatively, you can show this entire calculation in cost sheet also. So it's up to you. Both the approaches are correct. Octroi जो है पहले एक तरह का टैक्स लगता था, but after GST it has been removed. But still there are few questions wherein they have mentioned about octroi. So that's why I have taken octroi. Okay, any sort of subsidy received. Any sort of subsidy if received on purchase of raw material. Any sort of subsidy or grant if received on purchase of raw material will also be deducted. So when talking about the purchase of raw material, it includes the purchase price, the custom duty, that is the duty paid on import of goods, further carriage inward or freight inward, that is जापान से मेरे फैक्ट्री गेट तक जो भी गाड़ी भाड़ा लगा है, that is the carriage inward or freight inward, it will form part of purchase price. इसके अलावा octroi, commission on purchase, transit insurance, if it is borne by us, thereafter GST if any paid. Further, if we are getting any sort of duty credit, that is DEPB credit or credit under target plus license scheme, then it will be deducted. Further, GST credit if we are getting. Further, any amount realized on sale of scrap of raw material. Further, if we are getting any sort of subsidy or grant from government, then it is to be deducted. So the final value we will show in cost sheet. Alternatively, you can show this entire calculation in cost sheet. It's up to you. Both the approaches are correct. Everything, Rama, everything will form part of cost of purchase. Any sort of abnormal cost or abnormal loss will never form part of cost sheet. Neither the purchase price nor the cost sheet. I hope, Darshan, your query is resolved. Anupam, Rama S. Normal loss is considered, but abnormal loss is not considered. This is the amount realized on sale of the scrap value. So these scraps are normal loss. So let's say I am the manufacturer of a held drink named Mangoes, and I do procure mangoes from farmers, and during transit, loading, unloading, certain percentage of mangoes are damaged. So this is the nature of the product. So we do consider this normal loss in cost sheet, but yes, as far as abnormal loss is concerned, it will never form part of cost sheet or nor the purchase price. Whatever the certificates you are obtaining, Rama, as whether it is fumigation certificate, etc., phyto fumigation certificate, everything will form part of whatever the cost we are paying for all these certificates will form part of cost of raw material. Don't worry. So Miss Krishna Bagoria, this is purchase price. We will add custom duty. We will add carriage inward or freight inward, octroi, commission on purchase, transit insurance. That is the insurance from Japan to India. The GST if any paid. Further, following amount will be deducted, that is duty credit of custom duty paid, GST credit if we are getting, scrap amount realized on scrap or sale of raw material will be deducted. Further, if we are getting any sort of subsidies or grant from government, it will be deducted. It is covered in actual data, my dear. So that's why we do calculate under or over absorption of overhead, Aisha. It will be transferred to costing P&L, Noor Jamila. Any sort of abnormal cost or abnormal loss, by whatever name called, will never form part of cost sheet. Yes, you can, Anupam. Waiting for your queries, guys. I request you guys to please copy this part because I'll be erasing this part. So I request you guys to please copy this part. Not this part, but please this part, that is purchase of raw material. Giving you 2 minutes time. Any sort of abnormal cost or abnormal loss will never form part of cost sheet, whether amount realized or whether sale of abnormal loss, goods, whatever it is, nothing related to abnormal loss or abnormal cost will appear in cost sheet. I repeat again guys, abnormal loss और abnormal cost के related कोई भी data cost sheet में नहीं आएगा. You have to ignore it while preparing cost sheet. Anyone having any doubts, guys? Noor Jamila, hopefully your query is resolved. Sudhanshu, Darshan, Rama S, Anupam, Krishna, Ravi Kumar, Mr. Anandu, hopefully your queries are resolved. So this is how we will calculate the raw material consumed. Now let's proceed further. Thereafter we will add direct labor and all the other direct expenses. This is how we will calculate the prime cost. That is the total of direct material, direct labor and direct expenses. Further, when talking about direct labor, whatever the monetary or non-monetary benefit we are going to pay to workers will form part of direct labor. That is either transferred to any sort of provident fund for the benefit of workers, or let's say a bonus to the workers if we are providing any sort of medical assistance or any sort of allowance. Whatever the allowance, if we are going to pay to our labor or workforce, it will form part of direct labor cost. So now this is all what about direct cost, wherein we record the direct material, direct labor and direct expenses, and the total of these three will be the prime cost. Now let's start with indirect cost. As I told you guys, these indirect costs are incurred at three levels, that is factory level, office and administration level and selling and distribution level. So after prime cost, we will add all the factory overheads. We will add all the factory overheads, and if we add prime cost with all the factory overheads, we'll be getting gross factory oblique work cost. When talking about what all is covered in factory overheads, the first point is what we do cover is depreciation. That is any sort of depreciation on factory building, plant and machinery, or machines that are installed in factory premise will form part of factory overhead. Rent of factory. Further, if any indirect wages are only given in the question, then it will form part of factory overhead. Further, if any insurance is taken for the machines, insurance of factory building or machines, it will form part of factory overhead. As far as the value of perquisites is concerned, somehow, somewhere it is estimated by the management. Further, some rules are also given in direct tax also. So whatever the cost to the employer will be the value of perquisites. Let's say the company is providing food, beverages and refreshment to the workers, it will form part of labor cost. If the company is providing the gas electricity facility also, it will form part of labor cost. Any sort of overtime payment, if the company is planning to pay to the workers, it will form part of labor cost. If we are paying any sort of expenses for pollution control, and engineering and maintenance, it will form part of factory overheads. Apart from this, there are n number of expenditures. It can be supervisor salary, factory gatekeeper salary, factory lighting, all these form part of factory overheads. Employer's contribution only, that is the cost to the company, Darshan. When talking about what is written below, depreciation, so this is rent of factory. Manish sir? Manish sir? The board is visible? The letters are all visible? Okay, sir. So all these will form part of factory overheads. I request you guys to please copy these illustration. Factory gatekeeper salary, Krishna. This is factory gatekeeper or watchman salary. Further, this is factory lighting. Okay, Mayur Gupta, if it is a motor van for delivery of goods, then it will not form part of factory overhead. But yes, it is a part of distribution. It will form part of distribution cost. That is depreciation on delivery vehicles. So after calculating the gross factory oblique work cost, sorry, we will do adjustments of opening and closing stock of work in progress. So we will add opening stock of work in progress and we will subtract closing stock of work in progress to get the factory cost or work cost. Now, yes, delivery when depreciation will form part of distribution overheads. So this is how we will calculate the factory cost or work cost. Now, thereafter we will add 4 more points, very important points. The first point is quality control cost. Quality control cost, research and development cost, Thereafter, we will add factory overhead related to production, office administration overhead related to production. Related to production. I repeat again, guys, we will add quality control cost, research and development cost, administration overhead related to production. Thereafter, we will add primary packing cost. And we will subtract credit of recoveries. All these will be adjusted to calculate the cost of production. So the first point is yes, Darshan. So the first point is quality control cost, thereafter the research and development cost, thereafter the administration overhead related to production, further any sort of primary packing cost, it is to be added. Further, when talking about credit for recoveries, it will be deducted. Now let me discuss these points one by one. So when talking about quality control cost, whatever the cost that are incurred to maintain the quality standards, I repeat again, whatever the cost that will be incurred to maintain the quality standards will form part of quality control cost. Let's say I have kept a separate department to maintain the quality standards or to maintain the standardization of the product. So whatever the cost pertaining to that department will form part of quality control cost. Further, let's say if we are using any sort of material to test the quality of the product, then that material will form part of quality control cost. When talking about research and development cost, whatever the cost that is incurred for any sort of research, either the research is done for improvement of products, if any research or development cost is incurred for the development of the product or improving the quality of the product or improve the quality of the production process or betterment of production process, then this research and development cost will form part of cost sheet. I repeat again, guys, I'll be covering this part, Sudhanshu, don't worry. So research is done either for the improvement in the product or for the improvement in the production process or for improvement of the workforce, that is the labor, for the betterment of the labor force or workforce, then any sort of research and development cost that is incurred will form part of cost sheet. Apart from this, if any sort of administration overhead that are directly related to production, let's say salary paid to production control manager, then this will form part of administration overhead. As far as primary packing cost is concerned, let's say I am the manufacturer of health drink and these health drinks are provided in Tetra packs. So Tetra pack के बगैर मैं health drink बेच ही नहीं सकता. It is not marketable. It is necessary that we have to incur that primary packing cost, that is the cost of Tetra pack, to market the product. So that is what we call as the primary packing. So whatever the primary packing cost, again it will form part of cost of production. So the tube used in toothpaste or the Tetra pack used in either we can say Maaza or Fruity, all are the examples of primary packing cost. Further, when talking about recoveries, it means what? Amount recovered on sale of scrap that arises during the manufacture of a product. What is credit for recoveries? any amount realized on sale of scrap or waste generated in manufacturing process will be deducted. Any amount realized on sale of scrap or waste generated in manufacturing process, or we can say amount realized on sale of byproduct So during the manufacture of sugar, let's say byproduct molasses is generated and the molasses is sold in the market. So amount realized on sale of molasses will be reduced from the cost of will be reduced from the total cost to calculate the cost of production. If it is a normal supervisor, that is factory supervisor, it will form part of factory overheads. But if it is a production control manager, then it will form part of administration overhead related to production. Repairs of machinery will form part of factory overheads, Mayur. I hope, Sudhanshu, your query is resolved. Wherein when talking about the credit for recoveries, any amount realized on sale of scrap that is generated during the manufacturing process, it will be reduced from the cost to calculate the cost of production, or we can say any amount realized on sale of byproduct. Again, that will be reduced from the cost to calculate the cost of production. I request you guys to please copy this statement, that is the meaning of credit for recoveries. You can write as the meaning of credit for recoveries. See, if the raw material is sold, if any amount is realized on sale of scrap of raw material, then it will be reduced from the cost of raw material. But अगर production process के time पे अगर कुछ scrap generate होता है, I repeat again, during the manufacturing process or production process, अगर कुछ scrap generate होता है and that scrap is sold in the market, it will be reduced while calculating the cost of production. Okay, Himanshu, this is administration overhead related to production. Anyone else having any doubts? I request you guys to please post your queries if you guys have any doubts. When talking about quality control cost, whatever the cost that is incurred to maintain the quality standard, or let's say the quality control staff salary, or we can say we are using any sort of material to test the quality of the product, then it will form part of quality control cost. Research and development cost, any sort of research is done for improvement of product or improvement of production process or for the betterment of the workers who are working in the factory. So that cost of research and development will form part of cost of production. Further, the primary packing cost I have already discussed, that is the cost of the Tetra Pak, what we are using in consuming fruity or that maza, whatever it is, or we can say the tube of the toothpaste. Further, when talking about the credit of recoveries, credit for recoveries I have already discussed. So if you guys have any doubts, you guys can please post your query. Anupam Tiwari, prime cost is what? Direct material, direct labor and direct expenses. As per the requirement of cost accounting standards, we have to separate, Himanshu. And further, it is given in the study material also. Whatever the amount that is paid to the workers, I repeat again, whatever the amount that is paid to the workers who are directly involved in manufacturing a product will form part of labor cost. ज्यादा कुछ दिमाग लगाने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. Again, it is a byproduct, so whatever the amount that is realized on sale of that byproduct will be deducted from the cost to calculate the cost of production. So let's say I'm the manufacturer of shirt, and during the course of manufacture of shirt, let's say certain part of the fabric is scrapped out, and that certain part of that fabric is further processed to manufacture mask. So amount realized on sale of mask, the net amount realized on sale of the mask will be deducted from the total cost to calculate the cost of production. Any doubts, Bhumika? Kiran Shukla, any doubts? Subhashri, Komal Patel, Komal Prajapati, Raj Patel, Sonali, Palak, Ishan, anyone having any doubts? Kiran Shukla, Varsha. The Miss Mahatia, whatever the net amount realized, amount realized on sale of byproduct will be deducted. Herein we have no need to calculate the profit or loss or income or expenses. In simple terms, Ms. Mahitia, whatever the amount realized on sale of byproduct, the net amount realized on sale of byproduct will be deducted from as the credit for recoveries. So now after calculating the cost of production, we'll make adjustments of opening and closing stock of finished goods. So we will add opening stock of finished goods, and we will subtract closing stock of the final figure. What we will get is the cost of goods sold. That is the goods that are sold in the market. That is the goods that are actually sold. We will get the total cost. Further, in this cost of goods sold, we will add general, office, and administration overheads, plus we will add selling overheads and distribution overheads. So the total will be the cost of sales. So when talking about general office and administration overhead, accounting salary, director fees, office lighting, office electricity, office equipment depreciation, repairs of office premises, insurance of office premises, audit fees, any sort of postage and telegram, all this will form part of general office and administration overhead. When talking about the selling and distribution overhead, again, depreciation on delivery vehicles, free samples, advertisement cost, further salesman salaries, all this will form part of the carriage outward. Carriage inward will be added to the cost of purchase, and carriage outward will form part of distribution cost. So this is all what about cost sheet. If you guys have any queries in this part, you guys can please post your query. Further, I request you guys to please copy the statement. Giving you 3 minutes time, I request you guys to please copy the statement. See, carriage inward, it will be added to the cost of purchase. Carriage outward will form part of selling and distribution overheads. Yes, Bhumika, it will form part of selling and distribution cost. So guys, let's take a quick recap of the format of cost sheet. I request you guys to memorize the format. The first point is direct material. If direct material is not given, then opening stock of raw material, add purchase of raw material, less closing stock of raw material. We will get raw material consumed. In this, we will add direct wages and direct expenses. So the total will be what? Prime cost. 1 second. The total will be prime cost. In prime cost, we will add all the factory overheads. So after adding the factory overheads, the figure what we'll be getting is the gross factory cost or work cost. In gross factory cost or work cost, we will make adjustments of opening. That is, we will add opening work in progress and we will subtract closing work in progress. The figure what we will be getting after these adjustments will be what? My factory cost or work cost. In factory cost and work cost, we'll add few more points. That is the quality control cost, research and development cost, administration overhead that are related to production, thereafter primary packing cost, and then we will deduct credit for recoveries. This is the final figure what we'll be getting will be the cost of production. In cost of production, we will make adjustments of opening stock of finished goods. That is, we will add opening stock of finished goods and we will subtract closing stock of finished goods. The final figure what we'll be getting is the cost of goods that are actually sold or the cost of goods sold. In this, we'll adjust selling administration, general administration overheads or selling overheads and distribution overheads. The final figure what we'll be getting will be the cost of sales. So this is all what about cost sheet. Now few more points I want to discuss. If the value of closing stock of finished goods is not given, if the value of closing stock of finished goods is not given, then it will be valued at cost of production. Let's say after adding quality control cost, research and development cost, primary packing cost, and administration overhead related to production, we calculate cost of production. Let's say my cost of production is 5 lakh rupees. And the total units manufactured are, let's say, 10,000 units. Further, it is given in the question that units sold are 8,000 units. It is given in the question that units sold are 8,000. Out of the 10,000 units manufactured, 8,000 units are sold. It means finished goods in stock how much? 2,000 units. Now the value of finished goods will be, how to calculate the value of finished goods? So as I told you guys, the finished goods are to be valued at cost of production. So my cost of production is 5 lakh rupees and the units manufactured are 10,000. So the cost of production per unit will be how much? 5 lakh divided by 10,000. So this is rupees 50 per unit. So accordingly, the value of finished goods will be how much? That is 50 into 2,000 units. That is 1 lakh rupees. This will be the value of finished goods. So very important, guys. If the value of finished goods is not given in the question, if the value of closing stock of finished goods is not given, then we have to value closing stock. The closing stock is to be valued at cost of production. So my cost of production here is 5 lakh and the units manufactured are 10,000. So the cost per unit will be 5 lakh divided by 10,000. That is the cost of production per unit is rupees 50. So let's say of these 10,000 units, 8,000 units are sold. So we are left out with 2,000 units that are still in stock. So when talking about the value of these 2,000 units, the 2,000 units into the cost of production per unit, that is 50. So 1 lakh will be the value of these 2,000 units that are still in stock, or we can say the value of finished goods. I request you guys to please copy this part. Further, if you guys have any queries in this part, you guys can please post your query. Anyone having any doubts, queries, guys? Krishna, any doubts? Noor Jamila, any doubts? Diksha? We can say that the salary paid to production control manager can be an example of administration overhead related to production. So I request you guys to please copy this part. Is not given if the value of closing stock of finished goods is not given. Further, here it is finished goods in stock 2,000 units. So now the cost sheet statement is over. The valuation of the how to value closing stock is over. Now the last part, that is there are certain items not to be considered while preparing cost sheet. Certain items not to be considered while preparing cost sheet. Certain items Darshan, I do repeat again, whatever the monetary or non-monetary benefits, if it is provided to the labor or workforce, then it will form part of direct labor cost. So there are certain items not to be considered while preparing cost sheet. Bad debts. Again, bad debts, ये जो bad debts आता है ये पिक्चर में ही कब आता है? After sale of goods. So it has nothing to do with calculation of cost, so it will not form part of cost sheet. Profit or loss on sale of assets or investments. Any sort of profit or loss on sale of assets or investment will never form part of cost sheet. Cost sheet या calculation of cost से इनका कुछ भी लेना देना नहीं है. Thereafter, any sort of abnormal loss or abnormal cost in fact abnormal loss or gain and abnormal cost will never form part of cost sheet. Thereafter, any sort of penalties, again it is a part of abnormal cost. For better understanding, I'm writing this part: penalties, fines, etc. It is covered in abnormal cost, but for better understanding, I'm mentioning this part separately. So penalties, fines, by whatever name called, will never form part of cost sheet. Very important part: income tax or provision for tax. Again, it has nothing to do with calculation of cost, so it will never form part of cost sheet. Very important point, guys, because कई बार examiner income tax दे देता है और students जो है उसको general administration overhead में put up कर देते हैं. So guys, if income tax is given, ignore. If any sort of interest or dividend received or paid by whatever name called will never form part of cost sheet. Further, if any information is given as regards assets or liabilities, then it will never form part of cost sheet. Let's say the value of machinery is given 1 crore, then you have to ignore. But yes, the depreciation on machinery we do have to consider while preparing cost sheet. Examiner may give you many times examiner may give you this information, और students सोचते हैं machinery है तो factory overheads में डाल दो. No guys, do make a note of it that any sort of assets or liabilities will never form part of cost sheet. Any sort of provisions or transfer to reserves by whatever name called will never form part of cost sheet. Can anyone suggest me few more points that will never form part of cost sheet? Waiting for your answers. Can anyone suggest me few more points? Mostly I have covered everything. Can anyone suggest me few more points? Waiting for your answers, guys. Penalties, fines, etc. includes demurrage charges also for your reference. Can anyone suggest me few more points that what all is not covered in cost sheet? Grant is covered. Yes, bad debts and bad debts recovered. Discount allowed. Anyone else? Loans is a liability, so it is already covered, Aisha. Grants, it is to be deducted from the purchase price of raw material. So I have already covered this part. Smart answer, Darshan. Anyone else? Krishna, Noor Jamila, Komal, Sonali, Kiran. Theft. This is covered in abnormal loss, that is theft or fire of stock. Very good. So theft or fire of or loss by fire is covered in abnormal loss. If there are any drawings given, that is personal drawings, it will never form part. I've already covered interest part, that is interest, then dividend received and paid, any transfer to reserves by whatever name called. Discount allowed, Kiran. Anyone else? Dividend received or dividend paid. Sometimes examiner do give proposed dividend. Anyone else? That's good, Aisha. I've already covered this part. Again, advances are a part of assets or liabilities, assets. So it is not to be considered. Anyone else? Any other suggestions, guys? This is provisions and transfer to reserves. Any sort of provision, whether it is provision for tax, provision for discount on debtors, or provision for whatever it is not to be ignored. Transfer to reserves by whatever name called. Yes, Sudhanshu, any points? Interest by whatever name called, yes. Impairment of assets, Darshan, that's correct. Opportunity cost, yes, that is also correct. Interest by whatever name called, I've already covered. So these are the points. So these are the points what you have to keep in mind while preparing cost sheet, wherein these points are to be ignored while preparing cost sheet. See, grants are already covered, that if any subsidies or grant received from government on purchase of raw material, it is to be reduced from the cost of raw material. Yes, Bhumika, it is correct, but examiner don't give such type of points. Payment of debenture redemption. So yes, it will never form part of cost sheet. Very good, Bhumika. Very good, Aisha, Guduri, Darshan, very good. Suman Banerjee, if any discount is received on purchase of raw material, it will be reduced from the cost of raw material. So it will form part of cost sheet, but yes, brokerage, if it is paid on purchase of raw material, it will be added to the cost of raw material, Mayur Gupta. Further, discount received, I repeat again, guys, Suman Banerjee has posted discount received. So if any discount is received on purchase of raw material, then it will be reduced from the cost of raw material. Anandu, theft or fire of stock, it is covered in abnormal loss. So guys, this much is more than sufficient. So let's take 15 minutes break. I request you guys to revise what I have discussed till now. Thereafter, we'll start with the practical question. I'll be discussing 2 practical questions and I'll be discussing theoretically 1 practical question. That is all the questions I'll be discussing from study material only. So let's take 15 minutes break. Thereafter, we'll start with the practical question. In this chapter, the important part is the format and the concept, that is what to be covered, what not to be covered in cost sheet. And the second point is the format of cost sheet. बाकी कुछ भी नहीं है, आप format याद कर लीजिए, थोड़ा अंडरस्टैंडिंग डेवलप कीजिए दैट कहां पे किसको पुट अप करना है. एंड लास्ट पॉइंट, what all are the items that are not to be considered while preparing cost sheet. The chapter, you'll be able to solve any type of questions. Sale of scrap of machine will never form part of cost sheet. So I have covered. Okay, one more point. Purchase or sale of assets. So let's take a break of 15 minutes. I request you guys to please revise what I have discussed. Thereafter, we'll start with the practical questions. Welcome back, guys. I hope you guys have revised the format of cost sheet. So now let's start with the practical questions. I request you guys to please open your study material. I'll be starting with illustration number 1 of study material. So please open your study material, guys. So the following data relates to the manufacture of a standard product. I'm discussing illustration number 1 of study material. Page number is 6.9. So the following data relates to the manufacture of a standard product during the month of April, wherein raw material is given, direct wages, machine hours worked, machine hour rate is given. So the factory overheads will be calculated as using machine hours. Administration overheads general are given, selling overheads per unit is given, units produced, units sold, and selling price per unit is given. You are required to prepare a cost sheet in respect of the above, showing the cost per unit and the profit for the month. So let's start, guys, with the cost sheet of illustration number 1. So let's start with raw material. My raw material cost is 1,80,000. My direct wages are 90,000. Now in this question, no information is given as regards direct expenses. Therefore, my prime cost will be 2,70,000. Now herein, since the question is asking us to calculate the cost per unit also, so we have prepared the per unit column also. So 180 divided by 4,000, so this will be 45. 90 divided by 4,000, so this will be 22.5. Therefore, the total will be 67.5. So this is how prime cost will be calculated. In this, we will add all the factory overheads. Herein in this question that it is given that the machine hour rate is ₹8 and the total hours worked are 10,000. So my total factory overheads will be 80,000. That is 10,000 into 8. So this will be 20. Now After adding the factory overheads, we do the figure what we will get is my gross factory cost or work cost. Further in this, we will make adjustments of opening and closing work in progress. We'll get the factory cost or work cost, and thereafter quality control cost, administration overhead related to production, research and development cost, add primary packing cost, less cost for recoveries. All this if we add, we get the cost of production. But this information is missing in the question. So the figure that is calculated here will be my cost of production. Since no other information is given regards the other points that are to be considered while calculating cost of production, so better this will only be the cost of production. This will be 3,50,000 and this is 87.5. I repeat again, guys, no information is given as regards opening, closing, work in progress, quality control cost, research and development cost, further primary packing cost and administration overhead related to production. So since no information is given, so we have skipped this part and directly we have calculated the cost of production, that is 3,50,000. Now herein out of 4,000 units manufactured, 3,600 units were sold. Out of 4,000 units manufactured, 3,000 units were sold. So 400 is the units of finished goods. And when talking about the value of finished goods, it is valued at cost of production. So my cost of production is 87.5. So the value of finished goods will be 35,000. So we will reduce the finished stock closing stock of finished goods, that is 35,000. We'll get the final figure, that is 3,15,000. And the value will be the same, that is 87.5 for 3,600 units. So now the administration overhead, the selling and distribution overhead will all be calculated as per 3,600 units only. So herein it is given that the administration overheads are 35,000. This is cost of goods sold. Here in my administration overhead, it is given in the question, that is 35,000. Selling, and from here onwards the information will be calculated as per 3,600 units. Add selling and distribution overheads. That is, it is given in the question, that is at the rate 5 per unit. So 3,600 into 5. So this will be 18,000. Now this 35,000 divided by 3,600 units. So this will be 9.72. So this will be my cost of sales. That is 3,15,000 plus 35,000 plus 18,000. So 3,68,000 will be my cost of sales. And the cost of sales per unit will be 102.22. When talking about the statement of profit, the sale is of 3,600 units and they are sold at the rate 125. So my sale value is 3,600 into 125, that is 4,50,000 minus cost of sales. My cost of sales I have already calculated, that is 3,68,000. So this is how my profit is calculated. That is 82,000. If you guys have any doubts, queries, you guys can please post your query. In most of the cases, you have to take the value of finished goods as the value of cost of production, that is the cost per unit of the cost of production. Both the approaches are correct, Anando. As I told you, Krishna, the value of finished goods will be the value of cost of production. I mean, finished goods is valued at cost of production. So that's why I have taken this as the value. I've explained it previously that finished stock is valued at cost of production. And the cost of production per unit is 87.5. So 400 units into 87.5, this is how I got 35,000. Very good, Bhumika. Very good. Request you guys to please copy this part. Selling price per unit is the sales value, that is at the value which it is sold in market, and selling overheads the cost, that is the cost to sell the product, that is the selling and distribution overheads. Yes, the chapter is very easy, Darshan. So now let's start with illustration number 2. We are done with illustration number 1. So let's start with illustration number 2. The following information has been obtained from the record of ABC Corporation for the period from 1st June to 30th June, wherein opening and closing stock of raw material, work in progress and finished goods is given. Further, purchase of raw material is given, wages paid are given, factory overheads are given, administration overhead related to production is given, selling and distribution overheads are given, further the sales is given. You are required to prepare a statement giving the following information: raw material consumed, prime cost, factory cost, cost of goods sold, and the net profit. So again, a very easy question. So let's start with illustration number 2. So statement of cost and profit will be preparing now. Statement of cost and profit. So let's start, guys. Now opening stock of raw material is 60,000. Add purchase of raw material. When talking about the purchase of raw material, it is given in the question 4,80,000. We will subtract closing stock of raw material. When talking about the closing stock, it is 50,000. So raw material consumed will be 4,90,000. Sorry. 4,90,000. Thereafter, the wages paid are 2,40,000. So this will be my prime cost. $490 minus plus 240. So this will be 7,30,000. In this, we will add all the factory overheads. Here in my factory overheads are 1 lakh. So this will be 8,30,000. Now this is gross factory oblique work cost. In this, we will make adjustments of opening and closing stock of work in progress. Opening work in progress is given 12,000 and closing is 15,000. So this will be 8,27,000. 8,27,000 plus 12,000 minus 15,000. So this will be my factory cost or work cost. In this, quality control costs, research and development cost, administration overhead related to production and primary packing cost is to be added. But herein the information is given only regards the administration overhead related to production. And it is given 50,000. We'll get the cost of production. That is 8,77,000. Now, if we add opening and closing stock of finished goods, and if we subtract closing stock of finished goods, so the details of the finished goods are given, that is 90,000 and 1,10,000. So 90,000 will be added and 1,10,000 will be deducted. So the final amount what we'll be getting is 8,57,000. This will be my cost of goods sold. In this, we will add the general administration expenses, selling and distribution overheads. So here in the selling and distribution overheads are given, that is 25,000. Selling and distribution overheads are 25,000. So we will get the cost of sales. That is 8,82,000. Now, herein the sale value is given in the question, that is 10 lakh. So the balancing figure will be my profit. So the sale value is given, that is 10 lakh. So therefore my profit will be 10 lakh minus 8,82,000. So this is 1,80,000 will be my profit. So guys, there is no rocket science in cost sheet. The point is very simple. If you are thorough with the concept and if you memorize the format, you can solve any questions of cost sheet. If you guys have any doubts in this part, you guys can please post your queries. Yes, thereafter we'll start with illustration number 3. Very good, Bhumika. Giving you 2 minutes time. Those who have queries can please post your queries, else we'll start with illustration number 3. I'll be discussing this question, illustration number 3, orally because it's a bit lengthy. So I'll be discussing each and every point one by one. So don't worry, Sonali. The administration and selling and distribution overheads, per unit rate will be calculated on the basis of number of units sold rather than number of units manufactured. Varsha. So let's start with illustration number 3. I request you guys to please open your study material. I'll be discussing illustration number 3. This question is more for practice rather than, I mean, these types of questions examiner generally don't ask because the question is very lengthy. But yes, the illustration number 3 covers the entire chapter in one go. So I'll be discussing each and every point one by one. So be ready, guys. Just giving you 60 seconds now. So let's start, guys. Arnav Ispat Udyog Limited has the following expenditures for year ended 31st March 2021. I'm discussing illustration number 3, guys. So let's start. The first point, raw material purchased. Raw material purchase will form part of raw material consumed. Thereafter, GST paid on above is 18% eligible for input tax credit. So 1 crore 80 lakh हम लोग GST पे कर रहे हैं मगर we are getting the credit back. So add करके subtract करने की बजाय better ignore it. So no need to do. I mean ignore 1 crore 80 lakh because एक बार आप GST पे कर रहे हैं तो ऐड करेंगे वापस आपको क्रेडिट मिल रहा है तो लेस करेंगे. So better ignore it. So 1 crore 80 lakh is to be ignored while preparing cost sheet. Freight inward, it will be added to the cost of purchase. I have already covered this part in the concept part, wherein freight inward will be added to the cost of purchase. Now, wages paid to factory workers, direct wages. Contribution made towards employees' provident fund and ESIS. So again, it will form part of direct wages, so it will be added to direct wages. Now, production bonus paid to factory workers. Again, any sort of monetary or non-monetary benefit, if it is provided to workers, will form part of direct wages. So again, it will be added to the cost of direct wages. Now, royalty paid for production is a direct expense. Amount paid for power and fuel, again a direct expenses. Amount paid for purchase of molds and pattern, the life is equivalent to 2 years. So 8,96,000 is the total value and the useful life is 2 years. So 8,96,000 divided by 2. So 4,48,000 will form part of direct expenses. Again, job charges paid to job worker will form part of direct expenses. Now, stores and spares consumed. Stores and spares consumed, this amount will not form part of direct expenses, but it will form part of factory overheads. Stores and spares consumed will form part of factory overheads. Now the next point, depreciation on factory building. It will form part of factory overheads. Depreciation on office building, it will form part of general office and administration overhead. Plant and machinery के ऊपर depreciation, again it will form part of factory overhead. Delivery vehicle, that is depreciation on delivery vehicle. Delivery vehicle क्या काम करने के लिए आता है? Distribution के लिए. So it will form part of distribution overheads. So now next, salary paid to supervisor will form part of factory overheads. Salary paid to supervisor will form part of factory overhead. Now thereafter, repair and maintenance paid for plant machinery. Plant machinery कहाँ होता है? Factory में. So it will form part of factory overhead. Repairs and maintenance for sales office building. The name itself says sales office building. So it will form part of selling and distribution overhead. Maintenance paid for vehicle used by directors. Directors कहाँ पे बैठते हैं? Office में. So it will form part of office overheads. Thereafter, insurance premium paid for plant and machinery. The name itself says plant and machinery. कहाँ होता है? Factory में. So it will form part of factory overheads. Factory building, again Insurance premium paid for factory building, it will form part of factory overheads. Again, very important point, insurance premium paid for stock of raw material. Again, the stock of raw material कहाँ पे होता है? Factory में होता है, so it will form part of factory overhead. Now, expenses paid for quality control check activity. So it is a quality control cost. So it will be after factory cost. So it will form part of quality control cost. Salary paid for quality control staff. Again, quality control cost. Research and development cost paid for improvement in production process. It's a research and development cost. Further expenses paid for pollution control, engineering and maintenance. Again, factory overhead. Expenses paid for administration of factory work. It is administration overhead related to production. It itself says expenses paid for administration of factory work. We can place it in factory overheads also, but better it is to place it in administration overhead related to production. The better approach is that since the administration work is given and more or less it is related to production, so it will form part of administration overhead related to production. Thereafter, salary paid to production control manager. It will form a part of administration overhead related to production. Finance and accounts manager salary, office overhead, sales and marketing manager salary, again, selling and distribution overhead. Salary paid to general manager, office overheads. Packing cost, primary packing cost. I hope you guys are now clear with this part. Primary packing cost will form part of cost of goods sold. Sorry, cost of production. For redistribution of finished goods, sorry. For redistribution of finished goods, very important guys, packing cost for redistribution of finished goods will form part of distribution cost. Wages of employees engaged in distribution of goods, distribution cost. Fees paid to auditors, legal advisors, independent directors will all form part of office and administration overhead. Performance bonus paid to sales staff, selling and distribution overhead. Thereafter, opening and closing stock data is given. Amount realized by selling of scrap and waste generated during manufacturing process 86,000. So, while calculating the cost of production, we will deduct this 86,000 because it is what the scrap generated from the manufacturing process. So this is all what about illustration number 3. The question is lengthy, but it is easy if you are thorough with the concept and thorough with the format. If you guys have any doubts in illustration number 3, you guys can please post your query. I'm done with illustration number 3, waiting for your queries. In fact, your queries on illustration number 3 and any part of this chapter, you guys can please post your query. Still, we are left out with 4 minutes. So waiting for your queries. In last 4 minutes, I'll try to address all your queries. So waiting for your queries. Illustration number 3, hopefully it is clear to all. Sonali, hopefully illustration number 3 is clear to you. That's great, Sonali. Anyone else having any doubts, queries? Waiting for your queries, guys. Yes, Bhumika, Varsha, Darshan, Krishna, Anandu, Mr. Rajiv, Miss Rajiv Kumar Singh, Mayur Gupta. Anyone having any doubts? The chapter is very easy. The chapter is over. Jagat Babu Sharma. It is the job work charges. That is, हम लोग outsource कर रहे हैं कुछ काम. See, what is job work? Let's say I'm into manufacturing of shirt. Now I do manufacture the shirt, but let's say putting buttons, putting a tag, I do outsource it. I give it to someone else. So see, the job work charges paid to job worker will not form part of direct wages, but it is a direct expenses because मेरा workforce काम नहीं कर रहा है. I have outsourced certain part of manufacturing process. So that's why it will form part of direct expenses. Sir, amount of purchase of molds are taken only half. So see, 1 second, let me take the question. See, amount paid for purchase of molds and pattern life is equivalent to 2 years. Mold in Hindi we call it as sancha. I mean the mold, mold is like, wherein जैसे chocolate mold होता है, cake mold होता है. So their useful life it is given in the question, that is 2 years. So 4 lakhs जो 8,96,000 जो cost incur हुआ है वो 1 साल के लिए नहीं, 2 साल में उसका benefit मिलेगा. So that's why I have taken the half of the cost. Thank you so much, Mayur Gupta. It will form part of factory overheads only, Darshan. Palak sir, quality control cost. So herein, the first point is expenses paid for quality control. So it will form part of quality control cost. Salary paid to quality control staff. So again, it will form part of quality control cost. So in simple terms, quality control cost के related अगर कोई information question में पूछेगा, तो वो कहीं ना कहीं कुछ hint देगा कि it is more or less related to quality control. So if the examiner asks you anything about quality control or material used for quality control, then it will form part of quality control cost. Yes, guys, don't worry, examiner कुछ ना कुछ hint देगा ही, या क्वेश्चन में कुछ ना कुछ हिंट होगा ही कि दिस इज मोर और लेस रिलेटेड टू क्वालिटी कंट्रोल. सो देन यू कैन इजीली प्लेस इट अंडर क्वालिटी कंट्रोल कॉस्ट. This is a part of direct expenses, Himanshu. Thank you so much, Darshan. So guys, thank you so much for your time and patience. My next lecture is, I think, on 1st of May. I request you guys to solve all the questions of material costing, overheads that is taught by the other faculty, then overheads, labor costing, I think that is taught by some other faculty. Thereafter overheads, sorry, overheads, activity based costing and cost sheet. Try solving the questions of all these chapter. Class के साथ साथ आप question parallelly start solving the questions of study material and practice manual along with the sessions only. By the end of these sessions, you will be thorough with the costing. So no need to worry. I request you guys that to practice as many as possible questions. As many as questions as you can. So let's meet up on 1st May. 1 second. Sorry, Krishna, I can't. So thank you so much, everyone. God bless you. See you on 1st May with contract costing. Thereafter, we'll start with the next phase of the syllabus, wherein we'll be discussing the methods of costing. So we'll be starting with contract costing. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy your days. Enjoy your day. Have a great day. Sir, I am done.